So this is a Freedom Express 17 BLSE little toy hauler. It's like 20 foot 3 inches, I think, overall. 10 foot 3 high, 8 foot wide, double axle. Thought I'd do a little video. There's several of them on YouTube, but there was some information about this that I didn't find in the video. So I guess we'll start at the front of the trailer. Power tongue jack with a light. It's kind of nice. I drove this home through the rain several hours, and then it froze the next night. And when I went to go hook up the trailer, I found the power jack would extend but not retract. Once it hit some sun there and got above freezing, it started working. So I don't know that those are really that water resistant. Has two of the typical 5-gallon propane tanks, which for a trailer this size is plenty of fuel. An automatic changeover regulator. It's nice that they do give you 2 tanks and a cover, at least with the option package this one came with. And I upgraded to 2 deep cycle batteries. They're just 12 volt like interstates in parallel. And spare tire mounted on the hitch is really nice, so it's not taking up room in the storage space there. It's, I believe those are 6-gauge battery cables in there. They kind of stiff, cheap wire there. I'd much prefer like a welding cable. It's a lot more flexible, but it is what it is. There's no battery disconnect, which I don't really mind. I'd rather put in a like one of the Berryman circuit breakers / disconnects there to protect that power wire going to the power distribution box. Of course, it's not fused until it gets to that fuse box. So coming around on the left side of the unit is the pass-through door. There's another larger door on the other end of the storage compartment. There's this unsecured kind of piece of plywood flopping around here that basically, I guess, protects the back of the water heater from anything sliding around. This water heater is the type where it's 110 at war propane. Some models have a switch here to turn the 110 side of it off. This does not. That's controlled inside. It also doesn't use an anode rod. It just has a plastic drain plug instead. One thing, kind of a pain, the way they plumbed it. It's nice that they sealed it well, but they pretty much blocked you from getting in there easily with a socket. Since I usually carry deep wall sockets and lug wrench, torque wrench kind of stuff. That's sort of a pain. I'll have to get a different wrench there. Then your sewer hose carrier. Coming around here, you've got your water fill. Your power cord hookup for 30 amps. I'm sorry, here's your tank fill. That's your pressure water. Your satellite and cable hookups. The exhaust for the non-ducted furnace. The back vent for the refrigerator is pretty typical. Then one of the things nobody really shows you, the freshwater drain on this is right there, like under the chassis of the trailer between the tires. So you basically have to crawl under the trailer, as far as I can see, to drain the water. The guy that did my walkthrough thought the most obnoxious thing in his mind on this trailer was that the refrigerator sounds a beeper when the battery voltage gets low, but I think now that I asked him to drain the water out of the unit while I was doing the paperwork, because I knew I'd be going into cold temperatures, and I think after he crawled under it in the pouring rain to do that, he's found a new thing that he doesn't like on this unit. This is the other end of the storage compartment. They did find it include a light fixture, which is nice. So we're under the front bed here. There'd be the enclosure where they've sort of protected the water pump there. There's also some wiring exposed, but it's in convoluted split loom most of the way. which is a nice touch. And there you can see the side marker light also in split mode. Power awning, LED strip under it, outdoor speakers, a flush window. It's all pretty standard. Here are your low point drains. A lot of the videos don't actually show those. So those have a rubber O-ring in them, which is nice because you can hand tighten them and they're more than sufficient to not leak. Again, the bummer is the fresh tank drain is under the trailer. My thought with this, I may bend myself a piece of aluminum plate here and mount a hot and cold hose bib or a silcock there, since this doesn't have an exterior shower. That would make a nice low point drain without having to monkey with the plugs. And also then you could hook a garden hose to it and spray off your dirt bike or ATV or whatever before you put it in the trailer. So an exterior outlet, TV hookup if you want to watch TV outside, something I've never done. Castle Rock tires. I think a lot of people have blowouts by not necessarily keeping the tire pressure where it should be, but I'd much rather have paid a little more for this unit and have had good years on it to begin with. This is my personal opinion. I'll probably run these for maybe a year and change them out because I'd rather not have them come apart and damage the unit. Fiberglass with Asdel siding, but typically this little skirt feels like it might be aluminum. Is pretty light duty, and so is that fender skirt. I think if you had a tire completely separate, it could do a lot of damage. And then we do have Easy Lube axles with self-adjusting drums. Notice the brakes are not very powerful right now. Even at full power and no load in the trailer, it won't lock the tires. They may not have self-adjusted themselves by this point, or they may be breaking in. The thing I don't like about the Easy Lube axles, if you blow a grease seal or you get too aggressive with the grease gun, you'll blow grease onto the brake drums, which is not good. And also when you do that, you don't see that you have a few rollers on one of the Timken bearings there starting to spall. So you end up with, even though they have grease in them, you end up with a wheel bearing failure on the side of the road. If it seizes completely, it spins on the axle and ruins the spindle. So personally, every couple of years I'll actually pull those apart, clean them, replace the seals, hand pack them, and clean and adjust the brakes, and that way I know they're good. It's just easier to do that at home where you have tools. So anyway, other end of the awning, we've got just kind of the typical shove it up in there to store it, lift and pull down double step, which is fine on this unit. It does have stabilizer jacks on all four corners. I actually prefer the manual jacks. The power ones you get, both sides come down at the same time and equally, where these can kind of adjust a little bit for uneven terrain. It was nice that they included four. Another nice kind of positive thing, of course, LED lights, as they all pretty much have. But these latches here are very, very nice. They're much nicer than the typical hasp and padlock or whatever that you would see on a toy hauler. One thing, I guess, pulling it through the rain again, as I mentioned, and the next morning it froze. Couldn't get a key in that lock, couldn't get the key to turn in the door lock. I've since squirted some dry lock lube in both of those, and I haven't had them not work when it froze. Anyway, back into the coach. You've got, I should mention it has, I think it's a 1250 air conditioner. I believe it's the Brisk 2, which to me it's a big, huge overload on such a small trailer, and I think one of the reasons people buy a short toy hauler like this, not necessarily that they have a light duty truck, which I don't, but because they want to be able to park it in their driveway or even their garage. So I would have paid more to have gotten the Penguin 2, which is 9 inches tall, as opposed to, I think that thing is 12.5 inches tall. Would make the unit a lot more garageable, carportable, that kind of thing, and it would just look better, and they're not that much more money. So if anybody from Freedom Express listens to that, I think that would be a good upgrade. So inside you see the little folding table. They give you a little strap here across the bed. The other end of it's over there so that you can throw it on the bed and then snap it down so that it can't go anywhere and damage things. Similarly, there's a strap here when you flip this little sofa into bed mode and then flip it up against the wall that retains it. It's always thoughtful that they gave you a secure place to put that. Fender wells are visible on this. In a way, I kind of don't mind because they're not really in the way of what you would load in here. 2 quads would not fit in here anyway, and 1 quad, they're not in the way. I think it's part of what gives you lots of headroom. I'm about 6'3". I can stand up in here even in the raised shower, and the roof line of this thing is fairly low, so you could get it in a garage or a, you know, carport, that kind of thing. So I don't mind the fender wells, but unfinished wood edges just to me don't scream high quality. Kind of same thing under the entertainment center, but you know, for a trailer in this price range, it's fairly well built. So you have your power awning here and your interior lights, and I think you've got the rear lights and the floodlights and so forth. Little DVD player, CD player, Bluetooth stereo with a remote, which is a nice touch. An outlet here, and a little, I think it's a 32-inch LED TV. Since this is aluminum framed and vacuum bonded foam walls, you generally don't have any wiring running through the walls. So chances are the wiring for this is up across the ceiling. So the TV is 110 volt, and I thought, well, no big deal. I dry camp all the time and don't like to listen to a generator, so I'll just put a little true sine inverter. These usually only pull, you know, probably under 30 watts or under 50 watts for sure. But there's no 12 volt outlet anywhere, which I think that's one of the things that would have cost them nothing, that would have been really handy, and something I plan to add will be a little wall plate cigarette lighter socket thing there. Maybe one with USB jacks as well, so you could charge a phone or whatnot when you're not connected to shore power. And then up here you've got power for the external power boosted antenna, which seems to bring in signals really, really well. But anyway, I've apparently got, I can't really run wiring through the roof without tearing the whole thing apart, but I can probably tap 12 volt power enough to run a small inverter, a little socket there, just by tapping off the light circuit. So I plan to do that. So smoke detector there, control unit for the air conditioner. It's non-ducted and not thermostatically controlled, which in this small of a unit is fine. I appreciate the low profile interior unit here. As far as headroom goes, then we've got a really basic Dometic refrigerator. Everybody just says, oh, you got the big fridge, which is nice. That was a must-have for me as opposed to the little dorm room size ones, but it is fairly cheap. It has no temperature adjust setting at all. You can put it on automatic, or it'll take 110 if it has it, or you can manually put it on gas if you don't have a lot of 110 power available, like you're trying to run the air conditioner off of a circuit that's not 30 amp, that kind of thing. But a person could, there's the temperature sensor on that fin right there. A person could probably move that in or out away from that cooling fan in order to adjust temperature. The other thing I've found that makes these ammonia absorption refrigerators quite a bit more efficient is to add a fan. So you can buy a little fan that runs on D batteries or whatever, but just anything to have some air moving around. Those fins are the only thing that cool. So just the little air circulation will get everything in the fridge cool. What I did on a previous coach was I ran just a thin, like a 20 gauge wire through to the back of the unit, put in a little inline fuse, and then I put a little micro switch and a computer fan under one of these racks. So you could come in, turn that switch on, and that fan would draw very little power. It was really quiet, and it kept the temperatures much more even in the refrigerator. So down from here is the furnace. This is that's the only output duct, and everything is just kind of open behind it, so it's actually drawing air in through this grill and blowing it out here to keep from just re-ingesting the air that it just heated. It's kind of relying on it blowing it away from the unit. In a way, that's kind of handy. A person should be able to unscrew this and have pretty good access in there to get to the furnace. Then power distribution box here, pretty typical. It has 3 available 12 volt circuits available, and then 1 slot for a breaker or a double breaker there if you needed to add something. Should be fairly easy to disconnect the power and pull it out if you wanted to. So control panel, you have your hot water 110 side control is here, and then the propane here. Of course, you want to make sure that's full of water. Then you've got your water pump control there, and your tank level indicators. And I should say the wall is kind of typical of this price point. I believe that's the LP detector. Cabinets are pretty decent. So we're getting to one of the things people didn't really show. You've got a double sink, a nice high hoop, pull down nightshade there, metal blinds here. This utensil drawer is really kind of clever. It makes use of some wasted space. But then underneath, got nice hidden hinges and stuff. Oh, I should have brought a light. Okay, I have a light source here. So underneath here, they come with most of this bottom shelf blocked off. You've got decent storage under the sink and access to the P-trap and so on. So I'm going to have these screws and these screws, which gives you access to the water pump. So as you look around under here, they're using metal crimp bands and PEX piping, which is nice. Plastic elbows. I'd have been happier to see metal, but it is what it is. And there is no winterizing kit on the pump. So I'll add a valve here to allow this pump to suck in antifreeze. And so you can see they did leave some sawdust and kind of jagged cuts, and no grommet or anything around the hole in the floor, but it kind of is what it is. But I don't really see, unless you're going to carry a bowling ball down here, I don't really see that those panels are necessary to protect the pump or the wiring. In the lower cabinets, I like to carry weight as low as possible, and also things that don't attract rodents in the lower cabinets. So I'll probably have a Tupperware or a Rubbermaid little bin with canned goods in it down there, and that shouldn't slide in and damage anything. And also that way I'll have access to get antifreeze into that bin. Same thing under the microwave. I know there's a code now that you can't have storage below the cooktop, so I think that's why they put the microwave there. I'd have rather had a oven, because I'll do garlic bread and that kind of stuff, but I know most people don't use the oven and do use a microwave. And anyway, they blocked off most of that as well. They're removing that panel. You see the braided gas line there. They did grommet this. Kind of a bit of a sloppy cut there, and they do have some Romex there, and then your hot and cold lines running up behind the bed there. So I think I'll leave that panel out as well and use that as better storage. So up by the bed, the 110 outlet there, which is nice. Another ground fault interrupter outlet right here by the kitchen counter, which is nice. Over here is a USB power port right alongside the bed, which to me doesn't really make sense. You know, if you're going to charge your phone or something, I guess you're going to leave it on in the bed with you. I don't know why they didn't put that, like, say right there somewhere by one of these shelves. Otherwise, you've got 2 lights and a nice, you know, that'll be the sleeping bags and pillows, and probably room for your bag with your clothes on it for your trip. So you have bedding for the jackknife sofa here and whatnot. Then under the bed, another area most of the videos that I've seen on this unit didn't show, is this access panel. You can see it's cut right there and right there. Looks like they do have, or did have, screws in it at one time. This has never had a screw in it since I've just picked it up. I do wish they would have put a finger hole or some way to get a grip on it, because it is difficult to get it out. So, got that panel up, which was a pain. And you can see there's your bypass valves for the water heater. They're in the bypass position now. Your gas line coming up. They did grommet that hole. There's your hot and cold water going in and out. They didn't finish that at all, and you can see the electrical connections there. You can also see where the plumbing makes a 90 and goes under the shower pan, which is actually kind of handy. A person can fish wires through here fairly easily, but it would be nice. A person could easily cut a little oval in the panel between the water heater and the pass-through storage and be able to just reach through there in order to set the valve to bypass. And then you have the little bathroom here with a skylight at 6'3". I can use the shower fine. And plastic foot flush toilet. Really a tight bathroom, but I think they probably could have put a little medicine cabinet right above the toilet. And the other thing I wish they would have done, they've got the cheap, whatever they are, 6-inch fan jobs in both locations, over the bathroom and over the kitchen. I presume because they don't have any sort of vent hood over the stove. But it would have been nice if they would have installed fantastic fan. Runs a lot quieter, they move a lot more air. The 3-speed manual crank with reverse would be my choice to go here, so I'll upgrade that. Would have been nice if they just came with that from the factory. Just because you could set that to exhaust, and you could open the window here by the bed, and you could have a nice breeze blowing through without being on 110 hookups. I think that would have been nice from the factory. So I'll intend to put a 12 volt plug here. I'll probably put a wall mount 12 volt outlet, say right here, maybe one rated for higher current, and then I can power it right off the fuse box. The other thing I plan on doing is adding a tank heater. The tanks are enclosed, but they're not heated, since there's no furnace duct going through there to kind of keep those warm. I'll likely put a stick-on tank heater under the fresh tank, and a couple of the small elbow heaters, one on each of the dump valves, and then put insulation over that. Your water tank fill comes right under this compartment, so it should be fairly easy to pop that out, use one of those fuses to power 2 switches, and I can get lighted versions of like that pair of switches to put down there, one for the freshwater heater and one for the dump valve heater. I'll get ones that are lighted so that they're lit when they're on, so that you don't inadvertently leave them on and deplete the battery. The other thing I'm looking is for solar. Installation should be fairly easy. Typically I'd use the Z mounts onto the roof and conduit over to the refrigerator vent, and that way you can run your PV panel wiring down the existing hole for the refrigerator vent. And I might mount a like a Berryman flush mount circuit breaker here, so you have a way to cut power from the panels. That'll also give you a way to secure the wire to this edge of the vent channel behind the refrigerator without pulling the refrigerator out. Then it'd be take the back panel, vent panel off the side of the refrigerator and go through the same way they did with the gas line, and that would drop your wires down into this chamber here, and it would be quite easy then, looks like, to fish them past through the tub enclosure and over by the water heater. And I could put the charge controller then in the storage bin there if I wanted. Could actually put it here, but that way you would keep the run from the charge controller to the battery as short as possible, which is best for efficiency. So the other thing I plan to do is, which I think I'll do right now, I'm going to cut that drain plug off for the fresh water tank. I'll just put it all together. Oh, dang, battery died there. It is pretty cold out here. So what I was saying I was going to do, and I've done while my battery was charging, as I cut off the drain there and I put in a PEX T with some crimp rings, there was a stainless steel washer and bolt there holding up the corrugated plastic, so I just used that with some plastic plumber's tape to secure that pipe. And I ran it over to the side of the unit here. And yes, I know it's not sloped down, but it's adequate to get most of the water out of the fresh tank, at least enough so what's left would not crack the tank should it freeze. And then I put a PEX hose bib there and a brass cap on it to keep the crud and spray out of it, so I have an easier way to drain the fresh tank. Also, I didn't put that T all the way up to the belly of the trailer because I'm going to have to take the corrugated plastic out from under the unit to put a tank heater in there, and possibly for solar wiring. So I've got enough room there I can cut that and put in a new joint if I need to. So the corrugated plastic is held on by these, which I hadn't seen before. Pardon the traffic noise. Person I found can put a nut driver on them and spin them out, even though they apparently were put in by, I presume, like a rimfire nail gun. And then I just ran a stainless steel sheet metal screw and stainless steel fender washer there into that same spot, again with a piece of plastic plumber's strapping to secure that. So overall, that drain valve location is just boneheaded. That was kind of cheesy. Other than that, the overall quality, considering the price and what it is, isn't too bad. If I were king, it would come with Goodyear tires, so I won't have to upgrade those immediately. It would come with the Penguin 2 low profile air conditioner. It would have been a lot cheaper to do that from the factory than to upgrade now, although I should be able to sell that one and get a little bit of money out of it. Other than that, it's not too bad. The access to the electric system should be fairly easy for upgrades. The charge controller or the battery charger converter is built into that power distribution system. It actually has a bulk absorption and trickle charge mode. Previously, those all-in-one units came with little more than a transformer and a rectifier, so they wouldn't push a charge into batteries as fast as they could accept it, meaning you'd have to run a generator longer to recharge. And then if you left them plugged in, they tended to boil off electrolyte from the batteries more than they needed to. So that's perfectly adequate charger converter. All in all, a pretty decent unit. I have noticed a few little spots, little voids in the caulking. There's a little caulk around that. I see there is caulk around those lights. It's clear, so I can see it. You probably can't. But front marker lights, front cap transition is a pretty common failure point. Start to get water in there and delaminate, so I was happy to see that. Double sealed. The pass-through storage is nice. The tongue-mounted spare is nice. 2 tanks on a unit this small is nice. I could have come with an outside shower, but I can live with that. I'm not keen on cutting a big hole in the siding to install one. A black tank flush would have been nice, but you can always use the stinky wand kind. Probably does a better job anyway. And the drain there for the fresh tank was fairly easy to make at least somewhat more usable. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with it as far as quality and that sort of thing, but I will change out the air conditioner. I will add some 12-volt power sockets that it should have, in my opinion, have come with. And I'll probably add solar and tank heaters, and then, at least for me, it should meet my needs really well. So I just wanted to show really quickly winterizing setup I put in here. So this is your intake screener into the pump, out to the plumbing system. And this line runs over suction line to the freshwater tank. So right now the line to the freshwater tank is blocked. This other line to this clear hose is open. So I just stick that in a bottle of antifreeze, turn the pump on, and run antifreeze through all the taps. My personal preference for winterizing is to use the air compressor to blow out all the water, then suck antifreeze and run each tap with the pump running until I get a good run of antifreeze. Once I've done all the taps, pull this out of the bottle and lift it up so the pump sucks all the antifreeze so it doesn't spill everywhere, and also so that the pump is fairly dry. Then I can close that valve and open this valve, and now it's in the normal position where it'll suck water out of the fresh tank. I'll put a little foam pipe insulation under this so that it doesn't rattle when the pump is in operation. But that worked out pretty well, and I still have usable storage. I may actually put a divider this way and then have, you know, quite a bit of more usable storage here. Why they didn't say put the pump kind of in that back corner and leave a lot more of this usable, I don't know. I kind of think those partitions were more to cover their less than super clean cuts through the siding and that sort of thing, more than they are to protect the pump. And anyway, it's all full of antifreeze, and real quick, that's kind of the setup I like to use to blow out the lines. They do make a little Schrader valve kind of thing for air, but you have to hold an air chuck against it, and also the orifice through the Schrader valve kind of thing is quite small, so I don't think you get the volume. There is a commercial garden hose thing with a air compressor line, but that's assuming that you're using that kind of coupler. So a tap and air coupler that fits your lines works really well. I kind of like having a valve there, so I'll set the compressor to like 30 psi, and I can open that valve slowly and not just slam air pressure in there. So once I've got antifreeze through everything, I like to use the compressor to then blow all the antifreeze into the traps. So I'll open each one until they spit air and dump all the antifreeze in the traps. So I know my pipes are mostly dry. Whatever liquid is left in there is non-toxic antifreeze, and all the traps have antifreeze in it, and that's how I like to leave it in the winter. So here's a little more on the Freedom Express. Went ahead and we just have existing structure mounted in this outlet, so I pulled that out to get some access in here. And it's a wrap mast. One of the things, I'm not sure if you can see it in there, but I'm not too impressed with, there's a couple of inline fuses hidden down in here, which if you didn't know they were there and you had something to quit, would really be vexing. And also they left various debris and junk in there. But anyway, there's good access to lots of wiring. And see, there's two heavily insulated tray cable in there. So I went ahead and pulled the awning motor, which is also sloppily cut out. But it looks like this pair is hot and ground from the power center, and these two run up to the motor. So my plan is going to be to install this below the stereo. So you have an on-off switch, cigarette lighter socket, and two USB jacks right there. So it does use a little bit of power on standby, but when you close this cover, it trips the switch and kills power to both of those. So that'll be sufficient to run a little inverter to power the television. Looks like these are 14 gauge wire, and it's on a 15 amp circuit, so it should be more than adequate to pull like 40 watts worth of power off a small inverter to run the TV. So a little more progress here. I have kind of a mess to clean up, but I now have a nice, turn that on, you've got power outlet there and USB charging station there. That shuts off when you close the lid. It's just tapped in on the power leads there. Basically, it's a piece of pine with press board on the back and laminate on the front. So now I can use my little inverter there to power the television off of the batteries. So that's handy. So I'm about to install one of those here, so it'll be next to the flip down sofa. So a couple screws pulls the grill off the heater there. You can see wiring going back, and it'd be real easy to mount something on this panel. Then I pulled the 2 screws to take the fuse, the front plate off the power distribution box there, and then 4 other screws, and you can kind of slide the whole box forward, and hopefully you can see in there. I should have brought a light. You can see it does in fact have heated tanks. You've got the one main heat vent here, and you've got a small one here going right down and blowing into where all the plumbing goes under the shower there. So that's kind of a nice plus. So here we are buttoned up. Another little power outlet right there next to the flip down sofa. I think would be nice. Got those back in. That one and this one here I think turned out looking pretty factory. Probably end up charging phones quite a bit in this little shelf. I thought about putting the outlet kind of up in here, but I thought, you know, it's kind of nice to be able to see what you're doing when you're trying to plug in a phone charging cable or whatever, so that maybe out here would be better. And I can just keep my little dinky true sine inverter right there and plug the TV in it when I don't have hookups. So next up will be solar. It was nice to get those panels out, so I can see it'll be fairly easy to drop, put my remote right here, drop the wire through here, and go on up next to the hot water heater where I plan to mount the controller itself. That should all work out pretty well. So I'm moving along on the camper project here. I've got a couple 150 watt solar lamp panels. The roof on that trailer is a rigid foam with really thin plywood over it, almost like a paneling. So I've decided to, instead of my typical 6 brackets per panel, I've decided to go 8. Just there's really not much for a screw to bite in, and I want to not only spread the snow load weight on these, but also spread the load of the screws holding the panel down when you're going down the road. Kind of oddly, I haven't seen panels come without pigtails, but the junction box here has a couple knockouts. It did come with a couple watertight connectors, and I've got some MC4 extensions that I'll have to install on here, and then we'll get them up on the roof and get them laid out. And I probably won't do butyl tape under these. I'll just set them on a bed of lap sealant, screw them down and lap sealant across the top of them, and that way I'll get a little bit of an adhesive action as well as the mechanical fasteners of the screws. And a little shot of the combiner box. I plan to use a couple of short buses and a waterproof box with watertight compression fittings, and then a piece of flexible conduit that'll go through the side of the vent for the refrigerator. So a real quick shot of the roof here. Panels ended up both going lengthwise. 8 feet on each of them worked well. I was going to have one across this way, but that didn't work. Here's my combiner box. Going from 10 gauge to 6 gauge welding wire down through the thermostat. I think I'll just die core these wire runs down a little bit when it's warmer, because I'll want to re-die core some of these. It's pretty cold out. It didn't self-level that well. Anyway, combiner box, all waterproof, and flexible conduit screwed into the side of the cover there. Angled up so that where it joins the refrigerator vent. It's up off the surface of the roof, so water shouldn't get in. And then I threw a bead of Dicor lap sealant across the action under that cover section. Let's see, last time I left off, I think I was mounting panels. Those are up on the roof. So I went ahead and cut a hole in the wall, mounted my remote meter here. Actually, while I had the wall open, I glued some pieces of wood in behind it there. It's still pretty trailery, you know, but it made it a little less flimsy and gave the screws something to bite in. I liked it flush looking, being that it's close to the fridge door, as opposed to putting it in a box. So it was a matter of dropping that. Right through here is a vent pipe, so just kind of shoving the data cable on the other side of the vent pipe and it would pop out. You can fish it out of the corner of the wall there behind the power distribution center and push it through to the access hatch under the tub, and then just use the snake to pull it through there behind the water heater. And you can see where the data came out, and I put a little piece of plywood the same height as the storage box here against the back of the water heater compartment. I've got my DC circuit breakers for the battery connection and for the panels, and I've got my charge unit here. I put the cover plate on. Ended up popping a hole through the floor there. I was originally going to drag cable to the opening that pre-exists behind the water heater, but that would give me an unnecessarily long wire run, and also things kind of hung up in there when I've been trying to fish the wire under the unit without taking the belly down. So I popped a hole through the foam floor there and used a inspection camera that I shoved through the existing grommet. Here was foamed closed, and it had enough extra room for all the cables I needed to run through, so that's how I ran my thick cables here for battery connection and whatnot. Then I've got my remote temperature sensor and remote voltage sensor. This will get an inline fuse and connect to the battery so that the charge controller monitors the voltage at the battery terminals and compensates for any loss through the circuit breakers or the cable. So here's a little shot of what we got going on up here. I went ahead and mounted a waterproof 100 amp DC breaker there, kind of behind the A-frame. It can be disconnected under load, so it'll be a nice battery disconnect, but it'll also be a catastrophic failure fuse if one of these battery cables ever shorted out. So I've got my positive cable running from the charge controller and the original positive battery cable to hook to the load side of that, and then the line side I'll run a make a little jumper up here to positive. On the negative end here, I went ahead and put a nice closed end eyelet on the original battery cable and on the negative to the charge controller. This other piece is electrically isolated, but that's the temperature probe. And this other wire that I haven't split out yet will get an inline fuse and some, got some little ring terminals out of there. Little ring terminals, that'll be the volt sensor. So there's the original battery interconnect cables. You can see they have the open end that allows corrosion to get in at the end of the wire, and they're crimped and not sealed. So I went ahead and made battery parallel cables with the really nice closed end cables and the double thick heat activated adhesive heat shrink that totally seals these, so they'll last much longer. A lot better deal. And like I said, I'm still using the original negative cable to the power distribution bar in there, but I've upgraded the end too so that they don't corrode. So it'll be a matter of hooking that stuff up here. Okay, a little shot of some finishing touches on this camper. It has no place for hanging clothes, anything like that, or towel racks. So this, the entertainment center here, at least this side of it is pretty solid. So I've put some black, kind of sticking with the theme, everything on it, black. Towel bars in here, got 2 of them to fit under there and be useful, and then a towel bar for like a dish towel. I really like Camco's Papa plate and Papa bowl thing are handy as far as not taking up cabinet space that's kind of limited in here. And then they also make, Camco makes this Papa towel thing, and under that overhang was a good place. And then on the fender well is sort of wasted space, a good place for a trash can. The Camco towel holder is kind of handy in that it's there's a little bracket screwed under there that this slides into, and so you can take this out and set it out on a picnic table or whatever you feel like if you want to, and then pop it right back into place. And then in the bathroom I've added another towel hook and a little hook up there, toilet paper thing there, and that should be handy. I think that's pretty much everything I'm going to do to the inside. The solar thing looks really sharp. And then here on the side of the trailer is a shot of hot and cold tap with a brass plug in it. We'll get a shot from underneath real quick. So here you can see the hot and cold low point drains here are just 1/2-inch pecks, and I went ahead and put in T's to retain the original drain plugs, but I made sure the cross pipes here are running downhill. The back of this freeze-proof valve is also sloped downhill, and that way you've got hot and cold running water outside. Look at a couple other little kind of things. Oh, and this is just a piece of sheet steel, a couple of stainless steel screws up into the frame here, and then I've got a couple of screws into the flooring there with some sealant, so that's all super solid. And I'll put some pipe insulation over these, and factory spray foam there could use to be a little tighter too, so I'll probably add some foam back around this, some pipe insulators here, and maybe foam that a little better. And up front here I've added one of the 90-degree elbows on the one propane tank. If you shove the tank cover over, you can fairly easily get a hose on that without having to take the propane tank cover off. And then there's the hose that comes with the kit, so you can connect a barbecue or a lantern or whatever else off the trailer's propane tank without interrupting its flow. A little self-coiling hose and a sprayer I'll keep in here so that I can use that faucet as a spray off the ATV or outside shower. And then this thing I didn't know they made is super handy. A new grill gauge. Basically it's a spring scale calibrated so that the weight of an empty propane tank reads empty, a 20-pound propane tank that is, and the weight of a full one will read full. I'll mosey over here, there's a propane tank sitting here. So there's a propane tank. I can do this with one hand. Put the hook on it there and just lift it without letting it swing. And you can see it move that needle to a little bit over half full. And just turn that dial and turn the needle back, weigh it for the next time you weigh something. So that's super handy thing to have. A lot of times I'll run to the filling station only to find out my tank is only down a couple gallons. So that should just about do it as far as setting up this little toy hauler. A couple of things I forgot to mention. As far as putting plate holders and stuff on the cabinets, if it's your first RV, you might just start putting them where there's space. But you might notice I deliberately didn't mount anything over the stove. Also, the paper towel holder is pretty deep and would have blocked what is pretty much the only source of sunlight to come in on this side of the trailer, so I wanted that window pretty well unobstructed. Earlier models of this trailer, I guess, came with a cutting board that fit over the stove. So I bought a bamboo cutting board that has feet. The feet aren't quite long enough to keep the cutting board from resting on the knobs for the stove, which I don't care for that idea. So I bought a piece of hardwood dowel, and I'll cut some, I think I need 1.5 or 2 inch long sections, and drill through them and use some long screws and put the feet on the bottom of the dowel so that I'll have an elevated no slip cutting board. And then I also ordered this, it's another Camco designed for RVs cutting board with little feet you can move. I think it's kind of designed to sit on an over-the-counter sink. Not very many units, or they just sort of recently started putting in these under counter mounted sinks like this one has, but it fits well enough to serve its purpose to give you a little bit of extra food prep space when you're not doing dishes or whatever and don't need the double sink. So let's see, I'm not sure I left off on this trailer. I've been kind of customizing. I've used it now, and the only issue I really ran into is this one light. When it's been on for a while, it'll start kind of blinking, being kind of twitchy. It's amazing how crazy that can drive you, so I've ended up shutting it off. So I went ahead and I pulled it down. I just thought I'd make sure that the connections are tight. They weren't super well crimped, but I couldn't pull anything apart. I just made sure that they're fully crimped. And I went ahead and made note of the part number and all of that on the back of it. I'll put it back up and see if the problem persists. I might email the company and see if they'll send me one. It's not worth a trip to a dealer to have that replaced under warranty. If anything, I'll just replace it myself. And the other couple things I've noticed, that the little jackknife sofa is quite nice to sleep on, but I happen to be where the west sun was hitting this door, and that frosted glass lets in a lot of light, plus you can't see out of it. So I'm hoping to replace that window with a tinted window with a blind in it like that. Went ahead and got the Lippert version of that replacement window with a blind in it. I'm not sure I really like it, but the cost to return it was more than I'd spend, so I'll just put it in. The original has screws holding the frame together, and the replacement one has little plastic clips, and I'm not really too confident with the plastic clips putting enough clamping force on that to make sure that it's watertight, but we'll install it and see how it does. Turns out AP Products makes a replacement window with tinted glass and probably a nicer blind for about the same money that's attached with screws. I wish I would have known that. Other things I wanted to fix or improve, that little hot and cold tap works great actually for spraying dirt out of helmets and stuff after you're riding, or as an exterior shower, or washing machines down with that little self-coiling hose and sprayer I got. But I'm going to put one of the little 3M stick-on hooks, and I don't know if it'll stay stuck on the exterior of this or not, but a place to hang the spray nozzle up would be nice. And the last thing I want to do, I just barely put some marks in the paint on that. Came close to hitting a gate post here, backing it up on a busy street, so you don't really have a lot of time to make sure you're lined up straight. And there's a time in making the turn to get back here where you really can't see the passenger side. So I'm going to put either a backup camera either above that center marker light, or I might actually put it down on the bumper. Just a little hesitant to drill a hole in there if I can't find a power source to the running light circuit. So Furrion, well, actually there's a couple of brands of nicer cameras. Friends that I've had have an online reviews. Seems like the cheap ones don't have the range really and don't work all that great. And Halo View makes cameras that replace side markers, and a camera that replaces the rear center clearance light if you want to do that, which is nice so you don't make any exterior holes in your rig. And then Halo View makes a license plate bracket camera. My tow vehicle is old enough it doesn't have a backup camera, and that would be awfully handy for you know, going up and getting your ball lined up with the hitch. So I've went ahead and I've decided to go with the Halo View because I wanted a license plate bracket camera. I'm sorry. Yeah, Halo View. Furrion makes a shark fin mount. A lot of these trailers now come pre-wired with a Furrion plug and a little shark fin mount mounted on there. I like that a lot better than just the bracket that the other camera systems come with, because the protrusion for the wire is kind of protected by that housing. So we'll shoot a bit more of a video on that as I get going with it. Okay, so up on the ladder here, kind of showing what's going on as far as installing that camera. Basically, I cut the silicone off this clearance light, and I can see there's wood up above that opening. I was able to pull out the power leads that power the clearance light here, and I saw there is a little gap between the siding and the framework here, so I decided to go ahead and draw out where this would fit and shoot a hole kind of right where the power cord is intended to seal in that rubber boot. And that's what I found. There's a little metal bracket there. That must be part of the rafter. I'm assuming that little layer of paneling is probably the interior ceiling, and then another part of the rafter system supporting this. So sneaking in there with a drill just to barely take out a little material to widen that gap should give me enough room to run my wiring down here where I can tap into the hot and negative for the running lights, and then it'll be a matter of you know, putting this up with power cord running through it, and probably silicone the gasket just to make sure that it's waterproof there. I'd put the that little shark fin camera mount and camera on here, and I should be good to go. So I kind of got away from doing a video here, but I thought I'd do a final update here. That's what I ended up with the backup camera. That's a Furrion, I believe, shark fin mount. That's the mount that a lot of RVs that are prepped for a backup camera come with. So I made like I think a 3/4 inch hole above the tail light there that I could reach through and tap the tail light power. The Halo View camera there came as a kit with 2 cameras, and now they make a version that replaces that marker light with a marker light with a camera mount on it, and I'd have preferred to do that. But I like this shark fin mount better than just a bracket. It gives a couple of layers of barrier for water to get in. You know, the shark fin is sealed against the siding there pretty good, and then the wire is sealed by a gasket on the inside. So that's how that camera ended up looking. It works really well. The second camera that came in that kit was a license plate bracket camera that I was going to put on my pickup to make it easier to hit the ball. Mounting that on the license plate, it would have obstructed a lot of the plate, and it would have been right there where it gets smashed if you did back up a little too far trying to hitch. So I've been running this monster hauler quad rack so I can haul 2 ATVs on the bed of the truck and only have to put something in the toy hauler when I need to haul more than 2, which is pretty rare, so we'll keep that cleaner. And I ended up just putting the camera right on the back of the rack. If I turn it all the way down, it shows the ball. And then my fifth wheel socket there, I just made a plug that powers this camera off the taillight circuit. I'd already made up that little dummy plug to power model airplanes, or another hobby of mine, and I'll set a charger for receiver batteries or whatnot on the tailgate and power it with alligator clamps right off of that trailer plug. So monster hauler works really well. I like that it's made out of steel and that it spreads the load across the base of the truck. That camera works well. And then a friend of mine 3D printed that plastic thing there that fits in that little cubby hole and gives me a spot to mount the monitor, so that ended up looking pretty clean. As far as other things on the RV, I don't think I showed. Here's how that window turned out. Nice flush mount. The tent matches the other windows. This is the Lippert version of the window with blinds. This was the one that uses the plastic clips instead of the screws. I didn't realize that there were 2 similar products. Anyhow, once you get the factory window out, the replacement comes with a little bead of sealant around here, but it sits slightly small in the opening, and you want to make sure and move it up a little bit, not just leave it in the bottom, so that that sealant contacts the outer surface of the door, and then you just basically kind of hit it from both sides of the door to smack the little clips together, and they actually hold quite well. And the retractable shade there works nice. It'll make it a lot easier to just sleep on the sofa. If you're turned away where sun is going to be hitting this door, you can put that shade down. The bummer factor is you do have to open the door to separate the screen door from the inner door to move that, but that's, I think, pretty decent. So from up on top of my truck here, you can see the other change that's made. There's a Dometic low profile, and now the trailer is parked under my carport, which is really nice. I think having these covered greatly extends their life. The other thing, that second vent there's been changed out to a fantastic fan, and we'll take a look at that inside here in a second. Okay, back inside the trailer. Nice benefit was being able to keep the same indoor air handler. Works with the low profile, so I didn't have to switch that out. Oregon RV here in the Dalles, Oregon has a really good reputation. They're great people. They were actually able to get a hold of their supplier that had a scratch and ding or a takeoff or something. That unit up on top is new as far as I can tell, but for whatever reason they couldn't sell it as new. So they got me a great deal on that, and they gave me some money for mine. Since they have a high canopy and scaffolding, it's kind of tough to pack an RV air conditioner up a ladder. and they're good people. I went ahead and had them install that, and while they were up there, they went ahead and put in this nice, fantastic fan. This is one of the 3 speeds with intake and exhaust, and it's nice and quiet and a nice upgrade. I don't think I ever showed to you that there was a little cutting board on rubber feet. The feet are just wide enough that can't slide off the counter. Counter space is kind of limited here, so a cutting board over the sink and something like that is super handy. I think that's about it that I haven't shown on the interior. Its towel racks are nice. The fact that it doesn't have any towel racks anywhere in the unit is kind of a pain, but something easily fixed. Plate holder and bowl holder works great. We'll kind of maybe look at a few of the exterior things that got taken care of. Okay, a little shot of my disconnect switch there with some rubber caps and convoluted split room, kind of clean things up. The grommet there where the factory wires went through, I dug some foam out in order to run those cables, so I've refoamed that. Everything's nice and sealed. I really do like running welding cable, you know, nice and flexible, small strands and nice high silicone content insulation there makes it nice and flexible. And excuse the traffic. The wire gauges are way higher than what you'd normally expect to run the amount of current that this puts out. Because the goal is to have 1, maybe 2% loss where normally wiring is sized, so that the wire will never get hot enough to cause the insulation to degrade. Anyway, same deal here, a little bit of insulation, split loom there, and the hole through the floor and into the water heater compartment has been foamed. My first time using one of these DC circuit breaker boxes. These DC breakers are polarity sensitive, so one side has to be to the higher potential or the current side. Of course, on a solar charger, you've got the charger putting out potential, and then also the battery has potential depending on what's shorted. Nothing against the maker of these DC breakers or that little box, pretty nice, but I think if I were to do it again, I would get go out to Home Depot and get a fusible disconnect that you'd use for like a hot tub, that kind of thing, a 2-pole fuse holder with a disconnect. So I really don't anticipate either of those fuses or the circuit breakers ever tripping, but you need to have a disconnect. A lot of times a charger will have to see voltage from the battery or it'll disable itself so it doesn't send power down a broken wire. I really like these Morningstar units. It has temperature compensation and volt sensing circuit. You can set it to the absorption voltage that you want. You can set it to do an equalizing charge on schedule. It's very efficient. It's a nice unit. You might notice I went with the switching version as opposed to a maximum power point tracker. Reason being basically is cost, that I think I'll have a better overall system performance by spending that money on 150 amp panels as opposed to a PowerPoint tracking version of that controller and having less money to spend on the panels. So I think for money spent, the components I chose should give me pretty good performance. A real minor thing, I like to upgrade the cap to the sewer connector there with one that has a little garden hose outlet, and I like to put that green valve on there. If you get a little grit or whatever in your dump valves, when you go to take that cap off to hook up your Stinky Slinky, you can find that it's partially full of sewage and it spills everywhere as you're taking that cap off. This way you can unscrew the little garden hose cap from the green valve there and hold your slinky up under that, open that little quarter turn valve, and make sure that there's nothing behind that cap when you take it off. Also, I can see that little green valve in my mirror, which makes it really handy to line this up with a dump station. So I do camp below freezing, and I did end up deciding not to put heaters on these, but I did get some industrial pipe insulation for both sides, and I think by running the furnace, you know, and the water that gets down in there will tend to be warm. I don't think I'll have any issues with it freezing up. It's not like I go out when it's below zero or that kind of thing. Same thing with the tank heater. I've decided to try it and see how it does. Though it doesn't have heated tanks per se, the furnace does have more than just the one outlet. It has a second outlet that blows under the plumbing past the tub there and blows towards the water heater compartment. And so then the only outlet for that air to come out is the hole through the floor, and there's a channel under there that the pipes that run into to go to the other side. And I've noticed you can actually see that air does come out the opening in the floor under the cabinet there, so it is blowing a little bit of furnace air across the underbelly and across those pipes. So I think this thing, if you kept the furnace, you know, at 55 or 60 even, would probably be good down into the 20s or even lower without a freeze up. So we'll see if that's an issue, and if I have to add tank heaters later, I will. So over here, don't know if we can see that very well. Get in there. You can see I did basically the same thing with the pipe I added for the drain there. So I don't expect that to freeze necessarily either. And then there's a shot of the pickup. So with the setup I have now, I can carry 2 quads. I've got a spot. If I wanted to carry 1 quad in the bed of the pickup and 1 quad in the toy hauler, well then I'd end up with, what do you do with your gas jugs? You'd end up with them kind of stacked around the quad in the pickup, where they're out in the sun and subject to being stolen, that kind of stuff. So that's one nice thing with the quad rack is, you know, the gas jugs are shaded by the rack itself. They're behind the locked tailgate, and I run a security cable through the ramps and through the gas jugs, so that ends up working really well. So I do have the ability to haul a 3rd quad by having one in the trailer if I want, or most of the time when I have 2 quads, I can keep a dirty machine out of my nice clean trailer. That should work pretty well. These ramps kind of telescope out, and you slide them in either position. It does end up with the ramps kind of steep though, and one time I was parked on kind of a side hill, so they're even steeper than normal, and we just washed the quads or hosed them off so tires are wet, and I rode up mostly up to the top of this ramp and got a little bit of wheel spin going. I should have kept more momentum, and long story short, it slid sideways. The machine slid sideways right as I was cresting the top, and I fell over off the ramp and smashed the door of the pickup. Fortunately, I didn't get hurt. My age bones tend to go crunchy instead of bouncy. But from now on, both my quads have winches, and these have a provision to hook a winch onto the rack. So from now on, even if it looks wussy, I'm just going to winch myself up and down off of this rack. And then the other thing I like about this little toy hauler is I intended for it to take the place of my utility trailer that I use to haul giant scale model airplanes that are too big to fit in the pickup to the flying field. And so hopefully I'll get rid of that at some point. But the nice advantage of using this instead of that for that purpose is there's no bathroom out at the flying field. And also you've got, I've come out and hooked onto my propane thing there and cooked hot dogs or whatever for lunch for everybody. Nothing worse than getting out there, spending half an hour putting an airplane together or something, and then going, oh geez, I need to find a bathroom and have to pack up. So it would be nice to have an actual restroom at the flying field. So overall, I am really happy with this unit. It's solid, it tows well, fairly well built. The Asdel should alleviate rot if there is any moisture intrusion. Hopefully it's supposed to eliminate the delamination that these things tend to have, but I think keeping it out of the super hot blistering sun we get here in the summer will do a lot to reduce that. Yeah, a super long boring video, but I just thought I'd kind of post up my journey with setting this up the way I want it. If anybody has any questions or I can do anything for anybody, just shoot me a comment. Thanks. Bye.